We spend 30 minutes on it, but we won't. But it deserves a little bit of treatment. When the Bible talks about the fear of God, it's not talking about emotion. When we think of the word fear, we usually think of an emotion, don't we? Like, I'm frightened. It's an emotion. But we know the Bible doesn't mean emotion, that term. For example, in the Psalms, the Proverbs, it talks about teaching your children the fear of God. You can't teach an emotion. So what the Bible means by fear of God is something more than emotion. If you look at your notes, verse 3, this is one commentator called McCarter. He says, the fear of God denotes the awe of the worshiper, the presence of the numerous. There's several things he says here. So one sense, it's a combination of them, like an awe and a reverence is one kind of part of what the Bible means by fear of God. Second line, but it connotes a proper religious devotion in general. So fear of God, a reverent awe, proper religious acts, and continues, even with a suggestion of obedience, divine statutes and customs. So reverent awe, proper devotion, obedience, these are all parts of what the Bible means by fear of God. Similarly, in the wisdom literature, the fear of God is virtually synonymous with the knowledge of God. You've got to know about God. Concrete knowledge of divine commandments. So fear of God is knowing God, obeying God, proper devotions, and a reverent awe. Does that make sense? And that's all packaged in the fear of God. So when you read the phrase fear of God, don't think we're supposed to be scared of God. Probably a little bit, but that's not the main thing. I mean, for the Muslims, that's the only thing. You are to be terrified from God. You're to fall on your face, and God will smite you if he feels like it any time he wants. That's the Muslim view of God. That's not our view of God, but still, he is mighty, he is awesome, he is due respect, he is due honor, he is due our obedience. In fact, in morning prayer, in my Bible reading schedule, we just got finished reading the first letter of John. And John has a perspective I don't think we emphasize enough. John is both, the Apostle John, is massively devoted to the Lord in a way we would call loves the Lord with all his heart, mind, soul, and strength. But John is also, I would say very militant. And in John, it's very clear that we are to love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, but we are to also obey him. And what John puts together that nobody else in the New Testament does is if you aren't obeying God, you don't love God. Obedience, love is not equivalent to warm, squishy feelings in John. You can have warm, squishy feelings, and we're glad God invented warm, squishy feelings, because if we never got them, life would be really boring, right? But John clearly says, if you don't do what Jesus tells you to do, don't tell me you love him, because I know you don't. Obedience and love go hand in hand. I love something Father Eric said a couple sermons ago when he talked about what was he talking about? Was he talking about righteousness and mercy, or was he talking love and obedience? So two things that sometimes we pit against each other. He said something like God did not give us permission to major in one. They go together. They're hand in hand. Love and obedience. So fear of God, my shorthand, my quickest shorthand to describe fear of God is reverent awe. Reverence describes religious devotion. Awe, our proper attitude for God. And then wrapped into that is knowledge of God and obedience to his commandments. But reverent awe, fear of God. So David here is talking about one who rules in the fear of God, getting back to his last statement. And he's talking about, in a gentle reign. Not my house stands so with God. Fire. So worthless men are going to be utterly consumed. So the contrast there between those who fear God and those who do not. Any questions on that section, comment? And don't quote me exactly on this, but I've got these statistics somewhere. Warrior. Verse 9. Next to him was the three mighty men was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, son of Ahohai. He was with David when they defied the Philistines. He was with David when they defied the Philistines, who were gathered there for battle, and the men of Israel withdrew. He rose and struck until his hand was weak, and his hand clung to his sword. And the Lord brought about a great victory that day, and the men returned only to strip the slain. I love that little detail. Don't know if you paid attention that until his hand clung to his sword, like he was fighting so hard, his hand cramped up. You know, not that I've done this in battle, but you know, sometimes if I'm working out in the yard with an axe or a hammer or something, you get a sore hand. But his literally cramped up. He was fighting so hard, clearly supported by the Lord in that work. Verse 11, and next to him was Shammah, the son of Verse 11, and next to him was Shammah, the son of Agi, the Hararite. The Philistines gathered together at Lehi, where there was a plot of ground full of men fled from the Philistines. But he took a stand in the midst of the plot and defended it and struck down the Philistines, and the Lord worked a great victory. You know, most of the time when you got a group of soldiers and they're overwhelmed by the enemy and everybody flees and there's one guy left fighting, he dies. But there's a few famous incidents where that one guy left fighting fought off the whole platoon of the enemy and became a hero. And that was the case of Shammah. Verse 13. And 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came about harvest time to David at the cave of Adullam, when a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and carried and brought it to David. But he would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord, and said, "Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" Therefore he would not drink it. These things the 3 mighty men did. So, another reason why this is thought to be kind of early, because David's fighting with the Philistines was more early in his career than later. Verse 18. Now Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 30, and he wielded his spear against 300 men and killed them, and won a name beside the 3. He was the most renowned of the 30 and became their commander, but he did not attain to the 3. Now remember, Joab had 2 brothers, Abishai and Asahel. Asahel was killed in a civil war. Abishai is mentioned quite often. One thing interesting here is Joab isn't in this list at all. And there's a couple different, the main theory on that is Joab was known to be the commander of the army, and so he had enough notoriety. This is a list of other important soldiers other than Joab. So most commentators will say he wasn't listed because he was commander of the army. Everybody knew that. I have a theory, which may or may not be true, is that David was mad at Joab, so he didn't list him. But anyway, I'm probably wrong. Speaking of which, verse 20 talks of Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada. He actually succeeded Joab and became commander. He was not only a important military leader in David's time, but he became the commander of all the armies of Israel under David's son Solomon, his successor. But that's verse 20. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was a valiant man of Kabzeel, a doer of great deeds. He struck down 2 Ariels of Moab. We're not really sure what an Ariel is. What's that?
Champion is what my Bible says.
Yeah. The footnote here on the ESV is the meaning of the word Ariel is unknown. So one translation, Bob's Bible says a couple of champions. I don't know. It could be a couple of platoons. I don't know what it is. No, we don't know. Again, that's an example of a Hebrew word that we're not really quite sure how to translate. He also went down and struck down a lion in a pit on a day when snow had fallen. And he struck down an Egyptian, a handsome man. The Egyptian had a spear in his hand. But Benaiah went down to him with a staff and snatched the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and won a name beside the 3 mighty men. He was renowned among the 30, but he did not attain to the 3, and David set him over his bodyguard. I mean, that's got to be a pretty impressive guy. It's just like a series of things. Like one time he jumped into a pit by himself and killed the lion. Another time there was an Egyptian with a spear, and he had nothing but a staff in his hand. Think of Father Cass and his shillelagh. You know, he did the ching 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 ching, stole the Egyptian spear and killed him. Another time he did some heroic thing against some soldiers of Moab, but a great leader. Verse 24, Asahel, the brother of Joab, was one of the 30. That's just no big mention of him. He didn't do a lot after early on because he got killed. And now we're just going through a list of names. Verse 24, Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shammah of Herod, Elika of Herod, Helez the Paltite, Ira the son of Ikash of Tekoa, Abiezer of Anathoth, Mebunai the Hushithite, Zalman the Ahohite, Maharai of Netophah, Helab the son of Bana of Netophah, Ittai the son of Ribai of Gibeah of the people of Benjamin, Benaiah of Pirathon, Hiddai of the brooks of Gash, Abielbon the Arbathite, Asmaveth of Baharim, Eliabah the Shelbanite, the sons of Jonathan, Shema the Hararite, Ahiam the son of Sharar the Hararite, Eliphalet the son of Ahasbai of Makkah, Eliam the son of Ahithophel of the Gilonite. So let me pause there. As I've said before, I used to not particularly enjoy reading through the lists of names, like the genealogies. And famously, 1 Chronicle starts with 9 chapters of names. But over the years, as I've read them over and over again and understand more of the Scripture, you tend to pull names out. Like even just a page of names, you might find 2 or 3 or 4 interesting notes. So it'll either be someone from the early histories, or there'll be someone who shows up later in the Gospel of Matthew as part of the genealogy of Jesus. So here's an example of here, Eliam, the son of Ahithophel. You could blow past that and go like, wait a minute, that kind of vaguely rings a bell. Ahithophel was the famous counselor of David that turned against him and became a leader in Absalom's rebellion. It was his son, Eliam, who was one of the mighty men. And remember, Eliam, we're told, was the father of Bathsheba. That just adds a little, yes, it's a list of names, but if you stop and reflect on that, it adds a little to that story earlier. Continuing verse 35, Hezro of Carmel, Perai the Arbite, Igel, the son of Nathan of Zobah, Bani the Gadite, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai of Beeroth, the armor-bearer of Joab, the son of Zariah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, and Uriah the Hittite. 30 serve in all. You wonder why they put Uriah last. Just oh, by the way, now that you understand. So, how'd I do on the names?
I just thought you did great.
I didn't know how much Hebrew Audrey knew, so not much. Okay, I faked it. Okay, all right, good. Yeah, that's always good to know. Well, let's continue verse 24. We're away from the names and into a significant event later in David's reign. There's a couple differences in Chronicles, and one day I wanted to study to do like the differences. So one of the differences is Chronicles is written after the fall of Jerusalem, after the exile to Babylon and the return. So it's written in hindsight after a couple generations have gone by. And so they have different priorities in writing. First of all, it starts with 9 chapters of names. The returnees were very cognizant of. They place a great importance on I want to just say racial purity, of religious purity, of family lines, and so they recorded all the families that were proper Israelites, because in hindsight, they said, they reflected and said, all this bad stuff happened to us because we got led away after foreign gods. So the southern tribe of Judah, and mixed in there was, Simeon, was all that was left of the Jewish people after the Assyrians conquered the rest. In fact, it's not really historically proper to refer to them as Jewish until kind of driven by David's pride. Like, let me know how great my kingdom is, like how many people we have. And the other reason, which I like to think is a bigger reason, is Joab knows this is going to be a pain. It's going to take up like close to a year of my life, and I could be sitting here eating and drinking and relaxing, and you're going to make me traverse around. It makes a big circle around the land. It took us 8 months. So, one, it's a pointless exercise that we shouldn't do, and two, it's a pain for me, and I don't want to do it. So Joab tries to talk him out of it, and David insists, and it's like, okay, whatever. So Joab does it. There's a note here in the notes under verse 3 from Missler. Censuses in the Middle East always have been frowned upon. For the purposes of counting the people were to determine A, tax proportions, or B, conscript for war service. Who likes taxes? Who likes the military draft? So nobody likes censuses because there isn't a happy reason to do one. People don't like census, which reminded me, and probably reminded you, of the birth of Jesus when there was a census in the time of Caesar, who ordered a census, and everyone had to go to their town and get counted, which was probably for tax purposes. So that's what's going on. Now, the aftermath, verse 10. But David's heart struck him after he had numbered the people, so God kind of said, okay, pay attention now. That was a bad idea. You're in trouble. And David said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done, but now, O Lord, please take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. When David arose in the morning, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and say to David, Thus says the Lord, 3 things I offer you. Choose one of them, that I may do to you. So Gad came to David and told him and said to him, Shall 3 years of famine come to you in your land? Or will you flee 3 months before your foes while they pursue you? Or shall there be 3 days of pestilence in your land? Now consider and decide what answer I shall return to him who sent me. Then David said to Gad, I am in great distress. Let us fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercy is great, but let me not fall into the hand of man. So Gad, heard from the Lord that he offered David a choice of 3 punishments. It was interesting that those 3 punishments were straight out of what Moses promised would happen if, which is and the prophet comes back again to tell David what to do. Verse 18. And Gad came that day to David and said, Raise an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up at Gad's word as the Lord commanded. And when Araunah looked down, he saw the king and his servants coming on toward him. And Araunah went out and paid homage to the king with his face to the ground. And Araunah said, Why is my lord the king come to his servant? You've got to be both impressed and scared. It's like, here comes the king and his whole retinue up to your house. And he falls in his face, like, why'd you come? And David said, To buy the threshing floor from you, in order to build an altar to the Lord, that the plague may be averted from the people. Then Araunah said to David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Here are the oxen for the burnt offering, and the threshing sledges, and the yokes of the oxen for the wood. All this, O king, Araunah gives to the king. So Araunah says, Take it. And Araunah said to the king, May the Lord your God accept you. But the king said to Araunah, No, but I will buy it from you for a price. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. So that is like my favorite line in the entire Bible with respect to stewardship. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. The commentator Missler said, how could he sacrifice the Lord what cost him nothing? That would be a denial of the very meaning of sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice if it costs nothing. Some people approach, giving to the church as, what I can afford or what I have left over or what I won't miss. I remember hearing about, this was like a generation ago, a famous priest was doing a building campaign, and he just told them, I want to see in the offering plate, car keys and jewelry and, things that cost you something, things that you're going to miss. That is a sacrifice. And so David said, there is power in sacrifice. And this was critically important. And he was, tormented both by feelings of guilt and feelings of affection for his people who were suffering, and he wanted to contribute out of his own money for this offering, and he did. So that could be a whole sermon in itself, and we only have. But you've got two things at the very end there that are extremely powerful. One is the spiritual power and sacrifice, and the importance of doing something for the Lord, like when I talk about, during Lent, giving up something for Lent or some sort of Lenten fast, like, don't give up something you should do anyway. Like, I'm going to give up beating my wife. It's not a real thing. I'm just using an expression. But give up something that costs you something. Like if you love that morning Starbucks you get every morning, and it just makes your day, give up that for 40 days. That's going to cost you something. And when you're craving it and you're feeling unhappy that you don't have it, then think of the Lord. I mean, that's something that costs you something. That's a little thing again, Yeah, we've had a lot of people here at this church that gave up things that were very important to them, which is why we're here and why we have this space. But that's great. And then the other bit about, way back, I mean, how many years earlier, let's see, if David was around the year 1000 BC, Abraham about 2000 BC, Moses maybe 1400-ish. So 400 years earlier, God said, I'll pick the spot. And then here it is.